Thank everybody for coming today, giving up a portion of your Saturday on a nice hot day in Eugene. Thank the candidates for coming down and visiting us. We look forward to a good time of hearing your thoughts on different positions. And with that, we'll get started. Kind of the format, we'll give each of you an opportunity to give an opening statement, tell us a little bit about yourself. We're limiting those to 3 minutes?
2 to 3 minutes.
2 to 3 minutes?
Yeah.
And then likewise, as you, so after opening remarks, our opening statements, then we'll give the audience a chance to ask questions. They'll ask, I may restate the questions to kind of make it more clear, give some clarity to it. Again, 2 to 3 minutes on each of those responses. And then at the end, we'll try to give each of you an opportunity to kind of give your last words. And we'll try to keep the whole thing about 90 minutes. Sound right? All right, so with that, does anybody want to volunteer to go first on your opening remarks?
I'll do it.
Okay, Lou?
My name is Louis Younger. I was born and raised in Willamette back in 1953, and except for a stint in the military and 8.5 years doing fire suppression system design in Anchorage, Alaska, I've been a resident of the Willamette Grand Ronde area. I married my childhood sweetheart when I went in the military. We've been together 47 years, 6 kids, 13 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild on the way. I came here in 1999 when my mom had a stroke. Moved into the area, started at the casino in 1999. Worked my way up to maintenance manager. From there, I was the public works director. I sat on the board of directors for Spirit Ranch Casino for 6 years. Worked in the finance committee and the audit committee. I sat on the tarot board for 3 years. Went back to work at the casino as an environmental services manager. And my wife got paralyzed from surgery and decided it was time to relax and get her straightened away. We've done that now, moved into a home that she can take care of. I brought my daughter, Janae, and her husband, Daniel, who are college students, into our home to take care of my wife, so I can concentrate 100% on not only the campaign, but the tribal members and what I can do for them.
All right, my name's Victor Kierton, and I was born in Albany, Oregon, raised all around the Turner area, and I done the same thing. I married my sweetheart from high school. We've been together 51 years. Been an ordained minister now for 20, and went to work at, I started off over in Idaho. I followed to work as a roofer all my life. Followed to work, ended up in the state of Idaho for 19 years working for the same company, and decided to move back to Grand Ronde, to enjoy some of the medical benefits. There's more help there than what I was getting over in Idaho. Anyway, went to work at the Spirit Mountain Casino, worked there for 5 years as a blackjack dealer, and decided to retire. And it lasted about 3 months, and I just wasn't to retire in time. So I got in, took an opening for a part-time driver for the tribal elders, and it was a true blessing. I got to meet a lot of the tribal elders and enjoy the trips that we got to go on. And then I had an opening come up for a full-time transporter for a medical position, so transporting the medical patients to their appointments and things, and it's just as much as a blessing. I still get to meet the same people, enjoy their stories. I heard many of them from their past, present, future. They're just a blessing. But I'm here today, hopefully, to turn some eyes and let people hear my views on being a candidate.
Is that my time?
Good morning. Thank you all for being here, first of all. Nice sunny Saturday morning. I'm sure we have other things we'd rather be doing, but just want to appreciate you showing up. My name is Denise Harvey. I'm married to a retired Los Angeles County law enforcement officer. I've raised 6 children. They're all adults now, and I have 3 grandchildren. I worked for the tribe I came back to the tribe through my childhood. My mom, because she was born and raised on the reservation, lived there through termination. And we always came to the tribe every summer, every holiday. So I spent the majority of my life always knowing and being connected to the Grand Ronde community. I returned to the tribe in 2002 and was offered a position as the mentorship coordinator and developed a workforce development program from that, which is similar to the Tarot program that we have today. I did that for 8 years and was on the Gaming Commission for 10 years. 9 of those years was the chairwoman for the Gaming Commission. And in 2013 was elected to tribal council. So I really value and appreciate the experience that I was able to obtain being on the Gaming Commission and working for the tribal government. It has been a great opportunity to be on tribal council and to understand the gaming operations that we have and our government operations. And having that experience has been very beneficial as a council member. So this will be my 3rd term, hopefully re-elected again, and I look forward to the future of serving the tribe and the tribal members. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. Hey, Masi, my name is Kathleen George, and I am a mom and a wife and a daughter. I'm very proud to have both my husband Rick and my mom here with us today. I've spent my career helping tribes accomplish their goals, and I've worked for our tribe for 14 years in a few different capacities. I also worked for other tribes, mostly helping them accomplish their natural resource goals, protecting rivers and helping our waters be cleaner to protect tribal people. I have also served as the Spirit Mountain Community Fund Director for our tribe, started my career at our tribe up in the Natural Resources Department, and still remain very committed to those priorities for tribal people. It's been an honor to serve on tribal council for the last 3 years. It's been an incredible time of learning, and I believe of taking a lot of very deliberate and conscious steps to become more open and transparent on tribal council, being more accountable to the people. And I think it's been a real time of healing for our tribe. And so I'm very honored to be here with you today and can't wait to hear your questions. I'm looking forward to good discussion. Ayumasi.
Thank you everybody for coming. I know it's a long way through some of you not so far. We really do appreciate it. My name is Peter Grout. My mom was Val Grout, my father was Peter Grout. I'm 44 years old, grew up in Tillamook, Oregon. We had close ties to the Grand Ronde community, visit family often. I've been married for 17 years, have 2 beautiful daughters. My beautiful wife, I say that, I'll get in trouble. My beautiful wife, Jennifer, well, it'll be 17 years in April. 2 daughters, Isabel Grout and Sophia Grout, 15 and 10. I've worked at the casino for 21 years, so I had the experience there of working with the tribal entity for a good long time. I'm doing this for the fact that I know the amazing opportunities that the tribe gives us with help buying a home, going to school, healthcare, and all that. And I just want to continue to help and protect those services and try to add to them if we can. Thank you.
Excellent. With that, we will open it up to the audience if there are questions. Does anybody have a question at this point?
I got a million of them, but I'll do one. Do I need a microphone?
If they can hear it and you're probably close enough there, I think you're all right.
Okay. Do I pick a candidate?
So what we'll do is we'll ask a question and then all the candidates will get an opportunity to answer. So I would just, in general, ask a general question. If it's specific to one, then they might have a better answer than the rest of them. But
Well, yeah, the incumbents might know more than the...
sure,
Right.
absolutely.
Okay. Okay, I have a question for all of you. Recently, we have had a land purchase, and it is the talk of the tribe. But my question is to you guys, should the membership have discussed the purchase first, or should council, after elected, go ahead and do those big money purchases without discussing it first. What do you think?
Everybody clear on that question? Basically, should the tribal council have input from the tribal membership on large purchases? And large can be relative, but I'll let you decide how that is interpreted.
I like the way you frame that.
Well, thanks for that question, Clifford. I do think it's an important one. And when looking at this, there's several different things I think we should take a look at. I think you're making reference to our plans to purchase the Blue Heron property in Oregon City. And I think when looking at this, number one, we have to look at, is the property we're talking about a property that's been prioritized by the tribe as an area of high priority and where we seek to increase our interest and involvement? Number two, how does this compare to the way we've purchased high-value properties in the past? And number three, let's talk through the reality of what it would mean to have tribal members vote on high-dollar investments. So I'll try to do that succinctly. Number one, our role at Willamette Falls is one of tremendous cultural importance to the tribe and always has been. We know that our people were removed from the Chloe-Walla village right at the falls and also in villages above and below the falls. And they were removed to the Grand Ronde reservation. We know that the falls is the place people left the early reservation most frequently to return to. And so our relationship with that place is tremendously strong. In our ceded lands plan, that area is identified as an area of the highest priority for the tribe to enhance their management and their relationship with. And in our strategic plan, enhancing our relationship with our highest value cultural places was also identified as a priority. So pursuing this at Willamette Falls is in line with both those plans. Now, I also think it's important because the accusation has been made that this was some sort of secret and in the past things were different. So we actually took our plans during the due diligence phase public to the tribal membership and had a hearing to take input. When I compare that to, for example, the acquisition of the Multnomah Kennel Club or several very high-value properties, including a $20 million timber property that the tribe is considering purchasing in recent years, there's no comparison. Those decisions weren't discussed with the tribe at all prior to a final decision being made. So, or if you want to talk about other high-value investments like microgreen, I would have loved an opportunity. I'll wrap up. I would have loved an opportunity to discuss why that was a good idea or not. Tribal members had no opportunity to do that. So I think we're being much more transparent. And I think we really should have a conversation about this because we're currently investing more than $15 million in remodeling a casino, a very smart business decision. It would be interesting to see if you put that out to a vote of the membership, if something larger than $15 million investment would ever be. But I think it's a really important conversation and one we need to have.
Short answer is, long answer is, it depends on how you want to see that happen. There's different ways. There's, as Kathleen spoke about, it could be a vote. There could be, we could do an ordinance that changes that you need a supermajority to spend over, say, 5, 10, 50 million, whatever that may be voted on by the membership to decide at what purchase point do you want the membership input. I mean, you always want the membership input, but at what point would a vote be taken, or at what point, like I said, if it was a certain amount, that has to be the majority of the council, say 7 or 9. I think my thoughts behind that is that, well, unfortunately, there's always kind of that 5-4, who doesn't 5-4. So I think if you were to go with more of a supermajority, that you feel, whatever side you're on, that your voice is being heard through your, the people that you've supported throughout the past. It's been talked about that this wasn't done on the dog property, but that it wasn't discussed as much. There wasn't as much put up to the membership. Why is this one specific? I don't disagree with that. Why wasn't that done then? So what I would like to see is, at the casino, we're very policy driven. These are the steps to take. So I'm not sure. Maybe one of the council members could speak to that later. But is there policies and procedures in place that we can just follow, which no matter what type of purchase it is, so that the membership, there's always a gentleman, there's always a vote, there's always 30 days or whatever for people to see it. So as we go along, it's always the same. So there can't be the perception of well, why didn't this, you know, is this one bad because it didn't get talked about? Or, you know, so I think if there was policies and procedures put in place that everyone is treated the same, then you don't have some of these, we'll say, disagreements, for lack of a better term. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, Kathleen went over that really well, as far as why we purchased that property, how we went about doing that. And it is much different than past practice. So past practice has always been, there has never been any notification to the membership. There is never, oftentimes, even on the dog track property, we didn't do due diligence, we didn't do an analysis of the property or anything else. We just went and purchased it. I was actually, I think, one of the only council members that denied that proposal due to the fact that I couldn't get the answers that I needed prior to approving the $10 million to purchase that. So the other thing, and it has been discussed many a times, of how we go about this and do we need a vote of the membership. The problem with any economic development project is it takes anywhere from 4 to 6 months to do a vote of the membership. Oftentimes on these economic projects, you don't have 4 to 6 months to make a decision of whether you want to enter into a purchase and sale agreement. So the timing of that, I think if we had the opportunity on specific projects to do that, I think we would consider doing that. But there's not always the opportunity to do that on an economic project. You don't have 4 to 6 months to sit on it and make up your mind. Often these have to be done fairly quickly. So I think if we were able to do that, we would do that. I don't think that it's feasible for us to consider always being able to do that though. And past practice, the tribe has never done that. So, thank you.
Well, I kind of disagree on a lot of things there because, you know, I think we should have some type of a voice in these type of purchases. I think there should be a price level set, you know, where the membership should go on and have their say so. You know, there's a lot of discussion out there in the reservation area and all around about this last purchase. You know, I really don't believe the time was a necessity, I'll say. But, you know, I don't think there's a bunch of people out there that had $17 million they wanted to invest in it. I said, right now we've got a housing problem right on the reservation, a need for the people. You know, we got people that's sitting out on the streets because they can't afford a home to live in. I said, we need to concentrate more on the development of moving around forward and some homes for them. You know, it's a sorrowful thing. I think it'd be something to look forward to in the future, but I think also our tribal membership should have some kind of a voice in something this heavy of a purchase. So.
Thank you, Victor, and those of you that have commented. They've all brought up some good points. Peter Grout brought up an excellent point about supermajority of tribal council where that's concerned. How I think that we could probably do that, Clifford, is since tribal council members are elected by the membership, okay, to have a majority of 7 on purchases over 5 million, on purchases over 10 million, okay, will provide more comfort for tribal members because they know that the council is not controlled by 5 individuals. Okay, we're going to have that type of participation and input. I agree with Kathleen and I agree with Denise. George Hamilton purchased that property in 2012 for $2.2 million because it was available and it was a fire sale and he could do it, and he could do it right away. When you have an opportunity to be able to purchase property and you have an opportunity to be able to purchase it below market value, when you take that opportunity when you can to be able to do that. The membership is going to have to trust at least 7, if not all 9, tribal council members to be able to make that best decision. Like I said, the Willamette Falls was one purchase that we decided to go forward with. But like I said, there are several other purchases almost in the $20 million range on timber properties and stuff like that they chose not to be able to go forward with because of that. So how do we do that, Clifford? I think what we do is we set some policies and procedures as to what we can invest in. Now, Economic Development Department actually has that. You don't invest in startup properties. Okay, you don't, so those types of issues. Those policies and procedures can be written. You don't invest in this, you do invest in this. This is the criteria for investing in it, and anything over $5 million or $10 million has to be voted on and accepted by a supermajority of tribal council. That way you've got the checks and balances that you need. Trying to be able to go out and get a response, again, from, 3,531 voting members in 42 states and 4 countries, and try to be able to get their input, okay, is going to take a lot of time and is going to make it extremely difficult. So I think we can put the control systems that we need in place. Victor brought up some great things. Okay, housing is important. The infrastructure is important. The process is important. I've been through some major infrastructure developments, not only at the tribe, but also at the 801 Housing Project in Fairbanks, Alaska, and some other ones, and I know what it takes to put those hard surface structures in, and how long it takes, and how much money it takes. So,
2 minutes.
okay, thank you.
You don't have to stop. I'll give you guys 1 or 2 minutes.
Okay, so
Question after Mike. Will be better.
those are the things that we want to take a look at when we're talking about economic development.
Okay. Let me ask another question with that, Mike.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just, Mike will follow up on the same subject right now.
We'll give you a follow-up.
Thank you.
It's on.
It's on, thank you for the follow-up. The follow-up to this is, so was this purchased for cultural reasons, or are we gonna make money down the road? I heard Councilman Michael Langley, who is here, thank you for coming, say that we're gonna make some money on it. Now, what's gonna happen here? Well, especially to the incumbents here.
Can we limit this follow-up to like a minute?
I would assume that we are probably going to be able to make some money on this property. I've been involved with the Riverwalk Legacy Project on the Tribal Advisory Board for about the last 5 years. There's an extreme amount of interest in revitalizing that area, very similar to many old industrial river areas across the country where they went through that revitalization. It's become a very big tourist destination. We have another advantage that we have there is the waterfall, which is the second largest by volume waterfall in the country. So I believe that there will be an opportunity. What we decide to move forward, we haven't fully discussed that. We haven't all seen the developers and different people that have ideas. I have seen the drawings and ideas of what people have there. So I think it is very much a piece of property that is a revitalization piece of property. And those are economically very, very good for tourism. That area has been designated as an historical area. Nationally, I think there's only 6 or 7 spots in the United States that have that designation. It's also a good designation for tourism. So I believe there's opportunities there for us to either develop it or whatever it is that we find is the best opportunity.
It's both. It's not just one or the other. It is a primary cultural value to me, understanding our history and our presence there and our historic role at the fall that we have been investing in actively for the last 5 to 10 years. We're restoring our fisheries there. We've been fishing for eels there. Now we're fishing from a platform in our traditional ways. But I also am very confident that we are going to see restoration, and we're going to lead it. We're going to be the decision makers in what happens on the Blue Heron site, and that it will make money. Just like Grand Ronde is a cultural value, it is an economic value, it is a housing value. I believe that this historic village site is going to be the same. So as soon as the news broke that we were interested, several tourism and hotel developers contacted our chief of staff. We know that Metro has already committed more than $20 million for reinvestment in the property. We know that they're actually going out with an election to try to raise additional monies that could be committed to redeveloping kind of tourism destinations at the falls that will move through the edge of that property. Again, as owners, the tribe is going to be in the decision-making seat about exactly what those things look like. So we are still finishing up our due diligence phase. So we, in my opinion, are exactly where we should be right now, understanding what investments we'll have to make in the property to make it redevelopable. And then we go into we've started the feasibility analysis stage. So what should be there? Should it be mixed retail? Should there be condos? Should there be hotels? And so that will be the next work coming, and I'm very confident that we will do work there.
Not being on council now, seeing some of the due diligence and the others that some of our incumbents have, I can't really speak to whether it's going to make money or not. I've also seen a little bit of the plans, and I've heard like the Pearl District as kind of a comparison, that kind of area, which does definitely make a lot of money. So hopefully down the road we will make money off of. Culturally, I've also heard the cultural side of things. I've kind of heard both sides of it that, and I want to make it clear, this is not a purchase of the falls. A lot of people can get confused that this is not by any means a purchase of the falls. This is some property next to the falls. And you'll kind of hear both ways that we've never really done anything here. This particular site wasn't culturally significant. And like I said, you'll hear both sides of it. Again, I can't speak much to the economic side of it. I'm hoping it does make money. And yeah, thank you.
Sorry, it's just a phone, it's all right.
All right, anyway, I'd like to add a little bit to that, because I don't really think the council had a full option to concentrate, because we know the place is contaminated. There's asbestos, it's got gases and oils that's been leaking for years down into the ground. It's gonna have to be all cleaned up. It sits right next to the river. Anyway, I had the opportunity to talk to a truck driver here about a couple of weeks ago, and I was telling him about it, and he said, he worked for a company that had to clean up one similar to that, and they had to special wrap it, and they shipped it all the way out to Texas. He said it took them 2 years and $100 million just to clean that place up. So, I don't think they really give any full thought to the expense of cleaning up that area.
Economic development's an interesting animal because you never know with the risk that you're taking whether or not you're going to get a return. Now, Barry Kane of Grand Ronde Development Corporation took the Vancouver waterfront, redesigned and rebuilt it, 10 years, $100 million. It started to make money and the turnaround is coming. It takes a while for money to be able to be returned on this type of an investment. When Seward bought Alaska from the Russians for a little over $7 million, everybody thought he was crazy. But in time, that became quite a good investment for us. If you saw Bill Gates from Microsoft's mugshot from when he was a stupid kid, that decided that he wanted to drop out of college, I doubt seriously that you would have invested $10,000 in his IPO in 1983, which would be worth $12 million now. So what is economic development and how is it going to function? We have to be able to take a look at that. We have some good partners. We don't have, I take it back, we have no partners yet. There are partners that are willing to be able to do it. There are independent individuals that are willing to contribute money. Connie Ballmer, Stephen Ballmer's wife, Stephen Ballmer was the general manager for Microsoft for many, many years, has invested $7 million in the process, or committed $7 million. She's got some other wealthy friends that have committed. So take a look at what you want to be able to accomplish and how it's going to be accomplished. If you have an opportunity, go online and read the environmental study of I'm going to take one more minute. $17 million, 17 million acres, less than 1.5 acres of that is actually contaminated beyond human screening capabilities. You're looking at about $3 million to $5 million for cleanup.
So, you want to follow up with that real quick?
Yeah. I've requested a quick follow-up just because I do think it is every tribal member's right to have their own perspective on this and their own opinion about it, but there are some things that are facts and we should make those clear where they exist. So the idea that we don't know what we're looking at in terms of environmental cleanup on the site is false. We have hired environmental experts. There have been multiple phase 1 and phase 2 environmental assessments done on the site. Our staff is working with the Department of Environmental Quality on a preferred purchaser agreement that outlines what will need to be cleaned up over the course of 20 years at the site. The Department of Environmental Quality does not consider this a high priority cleanup site. Victor mentioned the asbestos. Yep, old buildings have asbestos. So did the Multnomah Kennel Club, and that didn't seem to be a consideration of anybody at the time when we made that purchase. So we've actually done a lot of work to understand what cleanup will be necessary at the site. We're working with the Department of Environmental Quality on a 20-year cleanup plan to take care of that. And so it is a known, and it is a part of cleaning up an old industrial site, and it's the same sort of cleanup that occurs everywhere old industrial sites are reused. Thanks.
Anybody else want to follow up with that? We're good? Okay. Do we have another question from the audience?
Go first.
Go ahead.
This is my third forum, and I heard a lot of comments about, and somebody mentioned microgreen already today, of what we've learned from microgreen. So in a short answer, I don't want to hear volumes and volumes, but just one or two things that you guys have learned from microgreen. Please, thank you.
Everybody clear on that? So maybe from the incumbents, you might say what you've learned, whether you were on council or not when that happened, and then for those who weren't on council, maybe what you learned from the outside and what you would bring to the table now on that kind of an investment.
So what I have learned, and I came on to council right after the initial $10 million purchase of an investment into microgreen. What I did when I got on council, and hearing everybody's thoughts, and everybody was really, really positive about this project, but for me, being kind of needing to know for myself, I started attending all board meetings. Through that process, I learned a lot. I learned a lot of concerns and questions that I had that I was able to bring back to the council. And over a period of time, those concerns grew, especially when you listen to other investors that came to the board meetings to invest. One of the great things that don't always believe everything you hear from your fellow council members and learn for yourself and participate in those meetings. Just like even with the Blue Heron today, I mean, I'm very grateful that I've been able to participate over the last 5 years in the Legacy Riverwalk, because I've learned a lot about the project, and doing that, learned about a lot of the interests, learned about a lot of the plans that they have for the future, what the Riverwalk will do. So I think my greatest thing, and I will continue, I try and attend the Shasta board meetings, I try and attend San Francisco board meetings, because I don't want to second guess the person that's coming back to deliver the information. So I prefer just to take the time and the energy to attend those board meetings so that I learn for myself.
Clifford, when something happens, you not only know what went wrong, but you also need to understand how to be able to correct that. I'm baking a cake. I know that if I put too much salt in it, it's going to taste terrible. But if I don't know that I have to put sugar in it, it'll never get any better. I just learned what not to do. We also have to learn what to do. My brother-in-law, Larry Lee, sat on as a manager of purchasing when they were there, and there were a lot of things that weren't done with microgreen. The first thing that happened, of course, is we went outside the required boundaries of what we could invest in. Our investment portfolio, or our investment process said no startups. But we went ahead and did a startup anyway, a big step. We didn't do the due diligence. We didn't have Trudy up there auditing the books when they went through it. We had no idea what the PE was on the shares that were buying. And then we changed horses in the middle of the stream and stopped being an investor and started being a banker, which meant that we collateralized, but nobody else would invest in the company because there was nothing that they could recover from. So, we ended up doing some things wrong all the way along the way. That's what you learn, and then you take a look at what needs to be done, okay, to be able to ensure that that doesn't happen again.
Okay, I'll just add just a little bit. I think, a study of all these important investments should be done a little deeper and more thorough before we throw our money out, into these situations. But, that's my whole thought on the whole thing, a greater study on the effects of what's gonna bring for us anyway.
I've talked to numerous different people about this, people that were on council at the time, people that are still on council, that were on council at the time. Seems like there was plenty of blame to go around. I have heard since then that there's been some new policies and procedures put in place. I think Blue spoke a little bit to them, not being a little hesitant to get into startups and other things of that area. Again, just some of the things I've heard about it is that we were kind of almost poker term pot committed at a certain point, or that's why we continue to put money into it, because we were trying to save the money that had been put in it before. So, I'm glad there's been policies and procedures put in place that hopefully that will help with this not happen again. I wasn't in there at that time, so I can't speak. But all I can do is from what I've been told from different people. So.
Well, none of them were on. So as a tribal member, I learned volumes on what I would never sit in the audiences and allow that to happen today. So I know none of you were on council at that time, so that's why my question is, what have you learned, and how do you take that forward? So, yeah. Anyway, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Kathleen, you can...
That's all right. Well, like you say, I wasn't there as well, but things I've learned from the folks I work with now and our staff who were around at the time is quite a bit. Number one, never ever allow somebody to convince you that your internal auditor should not be allowed to look at any program or manager. Your internal auditor that is there to look out for the institution, for our tribal government. And if the proper policies and procedures aren't being followed, that has to be identified and you have to look at why. And that was critical here. That should never be excluded from any operation. And our procedures and policies are in place to protect the tribe. If they aren't being followed, that needs to be brought to the whole council's attention, not only the officers, and it has to be explained or it has to be stopped. We would certainly require that today. You have to have a business plan that has a realistic evaluation of risk in advance. I've been told that there was nothing like that at the time, and I was told that the due diligence was very, very thin to nearly non-existent. We also now, whenever we consider a new investment, we require an external, unbiased, uninvolved firm to evaluate the proposal and submit a recommendation to tribal council. Would they invest in it or not? And they have nothing to gain or lose. They're going to get paid for their evaluation, or they're so closely associated to the tribe that they do that for us as a courtesy. The people who manage our investment funds, sometimes when they have expertise in that area, do that for us. And you have to look at, this was an out-of-state startup with, other than cup-making equipment, few assets to be recovered should this all go south. And when you can't produce your product for less than you have to sell it, investing more money is probably not going to make that better. So what I hope we do is we do learn from those experiences, and we put the kind of policies and requirements in place, as we've done with Bruce, so that we don't repeat those mistakes.
Good. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I actually have a two-part question. My first part is, what, as a member elected to tribal council, what are you going to do to help our tribal members who are dealing with drug problems and drug issues? I know that within tribal communities that, drug use has become a huge issue. I know several tribal members that I've talked to who have been dealing with drug abuse and drug use in and out, and our tribe really doesn't have any sort of infrastructure in order to help that. They're left to community resources and the local government, which always isn't always necessarily the most proactive in supporting our members. As a elected tribal official, what would you do in order to help our tribal members who have drug issues? That's my first portion of the question. And then my second portion is, as an elected official, what would you do in order to preserve our tribe as a whole going forward? You know, the split family issue has been debated and talked over for many years now, but what I'm looking at is,
Let's answer the first question first, because that's a totally different question. So I'll let you ask that second question after they've answered the first question with regard to tribal families and drug addiction and those kinds of things.
Okay,
Correct?
we'll start.
Is everyone clear on that question? Okay.
So being able to work in our community for the last 18 years and work with a lot of folks through my workforce development program, and seeing some of the concerns and the problems that people have, I know as an employee, one of the things that I really always tried to do was empower those people. I know I often was in conflict with our social service department because I didn't offer any monetary goods. All I offered was services to like get them to work, and I didn't have sanctions on them when I used to, you know, they fell off the truck or the light bulb went off. I always used, you know, words of empowerment, encouragement, tried to show them how being sustainable and being able to support their families gave them that strength to overcome some of those obstacles. That worked quite well. It really did, just having a support person there without handing them anything monetary. One of the other things that I've really encouraged was like our development of our community garden, the difference in the food bank that we have today, and having volunteer community support and opportunities for them to engage. We can always send people off to rehabilitation centers and then they come back to a community that is not healthy. And I think really, and I've often talked about you know, you have to change the environment of your community, and it has to be a healthy community, and there has to be ability to volunteer and engage and be supported. I just talked to a young lady that was new at our transition house last night, and that was one of the things she talked about, how grateful she was to be able to come there, how much she loved her tribe, and how she was so looking forward to engaging in the community garden and the food bank. I mean, she came and played her guitar and sang at the Elder Foster Care picnic last night. And she just, I mean, I really think those are the kinds of things you have to change that community. Also, one of the other things real quick that I've been working on and trying to get introduced at the tribe is the ACES project. I don't know if any of you, there's a film out there called Resilience. It's an amazing film. If you have the opportunity to watch it, please watch it. And it really talks about why in the history of traumatic stress in people's lives, children and adults. And there's a whole new way of dealing with those situations. So I'm really working hard to get that introduced.
Oh, unless somebody else is ready. Go ahead.
Yes, I'd just like to add a little bit. I was thinking, you know, in my letter that I sent out, you know, our tribe owns all kinds of land. And I think one of the things that we could have done with the money that was been spent was put up our own facility where they can have their treatments right on the reservation, make it more available, easier to get to. I know if we spend thousands and thousands just to send these people off different areas all over the country, why can't we make one work right on a reservation where they can get their help a little closer where it's needed, and maybe even open it up, you know, to bring in some money, you know, so those in other areas that need help, you know, in the close area, you know, send them dollars and let us collect collect from it also, you know, that gives the people the help right there where they need it, right on the reservation.
You know, this is an area where Victor and I, you know, in our pastoral positions, we deal with a lot. And personally, I've dealt with it. I've got a son that I put in 3 different rehabs over the course of 8 years. Pacific Ridge twice, Eugene once. And he's absolutely right. Grand Ronde does not have a good qualified NAAA program, okay, that gives people an opportunity to be able to be helped here. NA and AA programs and recovery and self-reliance are extremely important to be able to establish and build self-esteem. But once an individual comes out of recovery, okay, I'm a 41-year coin-carrying alcoholic. I mean, I understand those processes. So one of the things that you want to be able to understand and work with is once you get out of the program and you've established self-esteem, how do you get back into the community and become functional? How does that happen? So it's a holistic process. It's trying to be able to establish economic development opportunities for individuals that are coming in. How do we get them jobs? How do we get them started in business? How do we do those things? I believe that we can reevaluate the budget, okay, and allocate certain amount of funds toward these types of projects. I don't see where that would be a problem. But I know what happens when we don't have the problem. My son, who's been through that process, is now in Texas trying to be able to recover down there, and that's not working either. So, you know, getting it into the community, I think, is extremely important.
I think this is a nationwide problem, not just our problem. I think, you know, it's a nationwide problem. We need to look at, you know, I agree with what Denise said. She made a very good point of when they come back, they need that support, they need that place. We also need to look at our housing, you know, because we have drug problems on the reservation. We have a lot of good programs in place that help people and place people. I'm kind of on the fence about, you know, doing a drug rehab on the reservation. You know, is there enough? You don't want enough people to support it. I guess I would have to know, is there enough people to actually support a bill, you know, a separate building and everything there. I think some of our programs could be tweaked. I know that, you know, we helped a family member that I'm obviously not going to say name for a long time, and they had a problem getting into the women's transitional center that they were unfortunately in jail, but missed the qualifications of how long they were in jail by 3 days and weren't able to get it. So I think there could be, well, you don't want to make special arrangements for everybody. 3 days when you just weren't in jail 3 days long enough, I believe is kind of, come on, you know, can you work with us here? So, you know, I think with, you know, working with some programs, making them maybe a little bit more flexible, you know, but there's, you know, you got to be careful with that too, that it doesn't seem, you know, special treatments. But I think there's, you know, there's things that we can definitely do and programs that can be fixed and added to.
Well, one thing I think we can do to help all our people who suffer with these kinds of challenges and many others is remember that we're a very trauma-impacted community. The trauma that has impacted Grand Ronde people is substantial and it is recent. I mean, the impacts of termination and families being ripped apart and people disappearing who never were able to return to the community. And then in addition to family cycles of other sort of challenges that still affect our people today. And so one thing Tribal Council did this last year is we required every employee to take a trauma-informed service providing training out at the tribe. I think it was a 2-day training, was it?
Yeah, I think 2 or 3 days.
A couple days anyway. And so, you know, not just to sit in a room for a half hour and see a slideshow, but talk about our families and talk about what it means to have such unresolved difficulties in our families. And so that has to be continuing work. We have to understand that when we're providing services to our tribal members, we have to understand that this is a very trauma-impacted community. Something we've talked about a lot and I'd like to pursue further is taking, and this would require dedicating new staff resources towards, but if it helps our people, that's fine, that's something we should do, but a more case manager approach, somebody who can work with a tribal member or tribal family to work across services. So they don't get a packet of papers to fill out from social services and another one from the clinic and one from the therapist, and then we send them down to the food bank. You have somebody who's helping a person or a family in crisis work across services. When people are really in trouble and they really need help, they often don't have time for a lot of the bureaucracy that sometimes we ask of them. This would also help some of our folks in housing who we know need a lot of help. If we need to do things, and I really appreciate Peter mentioning his example that he was familiar with. I was completely unaware of that. I didn't know that our rules about who can access the transitional housing were that rigid. If so, I think we should review them and make that more accessible. And then I guess just the last thing I'd like to share is we are trying to work with housing and social services on a more, what they're calling the last chance agreement, to make it more attractive for folks to get into services. Very often, if folks have to leave housing because they're using, they will just choose to leave rather than to accept services. We would prefer that be otherwise. And so how is it that we can work with them and make it more attractive to accept those services and be able to stay? And I don't know what the perfect answer is, but I know we have to keep working on it, and we know we have to talk to the impacted community and hear what would make it easier for them to accept services. So thank you.
Okay, so quick follow-up.
Sure.
I just wanted to touch a little bit on what Victor said about having a facility in the Grand Ronde area. One of the difficulties that we have had with any of our behavioral health programs, and it's been that way at least as long as I've been there for 18 years, is keeping the staff and consistency of treatment with our patients. So that has been, it's the labor market demands don't give us the opportunity really to get people to come out there, stay out there, work there for any long periods of time. That has been a constant turnover, and that's about the last thing that you want with somebody that's dealing with addictions or mental health or any of those other issues. We at one time in 2002 when I first arrived, we had a niche in Salem, which was fully funded by the Indian Health Services. Shortly after I came on board, they were talking about closing that down. Me coming from the emergency medical field of Los Angeles County and realizing what an asset that was to have, I went to them like, how could you close that facility? That is a huge asset to our people. But they opted to close it down anyhow due to whatever problems they were having within that. So I'm just, opening up these facilities is a nice idea. We did have a facility that the tribe chose to close down in 2002. So anyhow, thank you.
So you had a follow-up question, or a different question, correct?
Yeah, just kind of a continuation question. So I guess to be more concise about it, as an elected official, what would you do to ensure the longevity of our tribe beyond this generation? Looking at tribal enrollment, I'm the last of my line, and so my children get nothing from this. And so it's like, why should I show up? Why should I participate? Why should I be here? If you're only looking out for everyone who's alive now, what happens in 20 years when my grandfather's gone and my mother's generation is gone? Then what, we have 100 tribal members, and then where goes our tribe? So what are you going to do as an elected official if given this opportunity to project that into the future of sustaining our tribe as far as membership goes?
Absolutely.
So let me just rephrase that, because the longevity of the tribe could be economic, it could be enrollment, which is I think what you're addressing.
Yeah,
And so you'd like them to talk about enrollment and membership qualifications. How are they going to do as an elected official to make sure that our tribe continues to have tribal members?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm asking.
Thank you, very good question. There's several different things that have been talked about, whether it's bumping everybody up to back to 100%, whether it's descendancy. There's numerous different options. I will be perfectly honest, I don't know enough about any one of them to say which way is the best to go. I would like to see that being studied and see what other tribes have done. How has it worked? Somebody that specializes in this field, and look at that, and then decide off there. it definitely needs to be done. I think I've heard a number of 2030 when we will actually start that decline. Now, I'm not sure if that's the, the exact date, but I've heard 2030 is when we'll actually start to decline in numbers that, we've always raised up to them. So what I would say is, is I would like to see some studies. I would like to see, what other tribes have done, what's worked best in the past, whether it's descendancy or bumping, because even bumping everybody up, you lose that half each generation again. So I totally couldn't agree more. Something's going to have to be done, something's going to have to be soon. I'm not an expert to say exactly what that is.
I'll just go. Thank you. So you're right. This is a problem, and it is a problem for our generation. I have served on tribal council for a little less than 3 years now. And when I got on, I started asking questions about, well, what do we understand about the state of our blood quantum? Because like your family, most of the families I talked to were getting near the end of enrollable blood quantum. And so I asked what the statistics were on that. How does that look? What percentage of our enrolled members are half, are three-quarters? We had none of that information. Nobody had ever thought to get it together. I was really stunned that people didn't even seem to understand the question I was asking. Well, how come we don't have this data? We have files. We know every tribal member's blood quantum, right? How come we can't run a report on that? And so we've been working on that for the last 2.5 years. And just now, we're finally starting to get those answers. And obviously, there's a lot more that I'm going to have to skip over that we could talk about why that wasn't the case. But the best numbers we have so far have recently been produced by our own staff. And tribal council together agreed that we should ask the question of our staff, of the children 5 or under that have been enrolled, obviously in the last 5 years, of those kids, the young ones, what percentage of those children, do not have sufficient blood quantum that they can enroll another generation? Because the vast majority of our tribal members don't marry other tribal members, and that's pretty consistent. Assuming you don't marry another tribal member, or you don't have children with another tribal member, what percentage of those kids cannot enroll another generation? And it was about approximately 83%. Only 3% would be able to enroll 2 more generations. Again, assuming they don't marry another tribal member. So the time is now. In about a week and a half, tribal members are going to get a bunch of information about this. And I don't know today what the right answer is for our tribe. But I do know that I believe that there is a future for the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde.
2 minutes.
And I believe that for us to define what it means to be Grand Ronde people today and in the next 3 generations, we have to come together as a community. And we have to make a safe space for our community to talk about this. It can't be me versus them. We can get your family disenrolled and we'll stay in and we'll get to be tribal members. We have to create a safe place where all our families can participate in this conversation, and we need to decide how we will move forward together. And so I look forward to hearing people's questions. I look forward to bringing the right data forward so that we can make powerful decisions about the future of our tribe.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question, thank you. Definitely something that we've put a lot of time and energy and thought, and we still have a lot of work to do on that. I will say, Kathleen was right. I remember, 3 years ago, asking for this data and being told we don't have it. I do remember Kathleen and Michael Langley coming as non-top council members, coming to the public meetings and asking those questions. I was very grateful for that, because sometimes that's the backup that somebody may need to move something forward, is the voice of someone in the audience. So I've always really appreciated that. We do have more information today than we had then. One of the things that we've also changed, because we have never tracked our descendants, which I've always felt was, even when I came to the tribe 18 years ago, I was really concerned that we weren't tracking that, because we send those descendants over to Indian Health Services, and there is some benefits that they get, but there's no tracking of who they are. We now have to where descendants can get a CID, which is a certificate of Indian blood, so we're at least able to do that today and have some idea of, and hopefully over the next few years we'll have more of an idea of what our descendants are. One of my long-term goals and what I would really like to see, and I'm looking at other tribes, is having a lineal descent for enrollment and get us out of this blood quantum era that the federal government enforced on us. I think it's a very sovereign position to take in practicing our sovereignty, is to go to lineal descent. What that looks like, I've looked at a couple of tribes. We really have to kind of come up with how that would work. And then one of the other enrollment concerns that I have, I would really like to make a no disenrollment law. And so we don't have to go through what we went through in 2013, 2014. It was horrible, and I never want to see that happen again. Thank you.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Catherine. This is a situation, that needs to be on the front burner at all times. There's a lot of discussion out there. I'm like Catherine, I don't have them answers, but I would like to see something brought forward to make it an amends. Fortunately, my kids, my grandkids are all eligible, but my great-grandkids, and I happen to have 13 of them, are just descendants, and I'd like to see that bloodline carried on where they get the same output we get, but I know there's a way out, we just gotta throw our heads together and somehow make it work.
Well, I agree with everyone on council. It is important. I'm 1/16. I'm in. That's why I'm here. So don't walk away because you're 1/16 and be concerned with what your children aren't going to get. Because your input is extremely valuable to us, okay, and we need it in order to be able to make those decisions. I am, for one, and I've posted it all over the place, I am adamantly opposed to disenrollment with the exception of fraudulent application. Okay? I don't like quantum. We talk about 7 generations, but if you're a full-blooded Native American and you marry outside, and each generation marries outside the reservation, you're gone in 5 generations. I don't know what we're talking about when we start talking about 7 generations. So how do we do it? How do we eliminate one? Now, a lot of the Oklahoma tribes, they go with descendancy. You get a BIA card that actually says you're a descendant. The difficulty is trying to be able to qualify individuals to be able to get all the benefits they can. When we were disenrolled and then re-enrolled, we had 3 generations that scattered all over the United States. Again, 42 states, 4 countries. Hard to try to be able to manage a tribe that large, a demographic, when you're trying to be able to give them all of the benefits that we talk about. So what do? We force them to move back on the reservation? That's a great colonial prospect. Okay, get everybody back on the reservations, and that way we can control it. That's not what we want to do. We want to be able to provide those benefits to your descendants and your descendants' descendants. And Catherine and Victor and Denise and Pete have all emphasized that quantum, at some point in time, is going to have to go away.
Good, that's everybody. Any follow-ups?
Michael?
Not a follow-up question.
New question.
New question. So, and my dad knows, no disrespect by this, I'm going to start off right off the bat with that. But my dad was born in 1937. He was raised in Grand Ronde. Lived there until termination, and then had to go find a job, and they moved out. But one of the things that he and I discuss is he will say something like, we didn't do that cultural thing back then. And so my question, I know how I respond to that to my dad, but my question to each of you is, how will you respond to that question?
So the question being from an elder who grew up on the reservation and would say, we never did that X, Y, or Z cultural ceremony.
Right.
How would you answer that? And Boone would like to go.
I got the mic. My grandmother and I used to talk all the time. It's basically the same thing. I remember the Hall of Legends. Does anybody remember the Hall of Legends at the casino where you walk through in the trees, told stories about how the squirrel got its stripes and the frog got its legs and stuff like that. And my grandma goes, where'd that come from? Actually, the question was that are some of our relatives, in a little teeny room, walking stage or whatever they do, okay, coming up with this because she didn't remember that. Okay, we were disenrolled. We were terminated. For 3 generations, realistically, we didn't have a culture. We weren't even Native American, except for a few visionaries that came back. Okay, so what we're trying to do, in my mind, is we're trying to borrow as much culture as we can from those individuals that didn't get terminated. We're trying to be able to tie ourselves to them to be able to see how that works. Remember, culture changes. Culture changes. It's like in Chinook Wawa. Chinook Wawa didn't exist before Native Americans, or before the white man came, because most of Chinook Wawa is a combination of Catholic process, English, and our tribes. Our languages. It was a communication process. So when we start talking about Chinook Wawa, we're not talking about a Native American language. We're talking about a version of language that incorporates not only the cultures and the communities, okay, but also the whites and the Catholics and Protestants and everybody else. So we have to establish our culture now and move it forward. We want to try to be able to capture as much as we can, but we're not going to capture it all. We have to be able to move forward and establish our cultures now. How do we do that?
Did you want to go next? Because you really did want to go first.
Yeah, no, Luke, he's got me.
So pass it down. We'll work back that direction.
Okay.
If you want to get right down to it, there's a ton of different cultures in our tribe because there was never such a thing as a Grand Ronde tribe. We're from 29 bands that all had their own culture, that were all put together in one place, and then told, now you're Grand Ronde. So I think it's up to, honestly, it's up to each individual family what they want to believe, and what's special to them. And I totally agree with Lou. Right, we still have a lot of those people here that remember, a lot of that, write that down, videotape them, let them talk. But I know we've done that in the past already, but just continue to do that, because there's just so many. My Uncle Eugene used to get so mad when he would, and I think you know what I'm talking about. My Uncle Eugene used to get so mad when they would talk about eels. He was like, we never ate eel, So it's just, we come from so many different bands that there's just going to be so many different ones. It's personally, it's what is your family, what culture does your cultural ways does your family follow? But get records of that, how we still can from our elders is what I would recommend most. Thank you.
So there's no doubt that our tribe, and just probably every tribe in this nation, we're severely disrupted people, culturally. Being taken from your homes and forced to live on a reservation where many of our people starved to death, after that termination and throwing our people to the winds, and just the kind of cultural pressure that was on our people prior to termination. So I've heard these things too, and I would never disagree with your father. And yet, I ask your forgiveness, cousin. I too have heard that we never did that. And sometimes it is different from family to family. I believe that gentleman. So we never ate eels. Well, in his family, obviously never ate eels. Talked to my mom, they loved eels, and they ate bear. Everybody knew that Sissy loved bear. So when the bear was got, everybody brought bear over to Sissy's house. And so a lot of it has to do with what do you choose to see as culture and whether or not it was done in your family. I remember my mom, one of my cousins used to always say that, oh, they want to put up a sweat lodge. We never did that. And my mom said, you gotta stop saying that. Uncle Boney always had a sweat house out behind the barn. So sometimes it's just, are you aware that your immediately family did that? Or maybe you better check with your aunties and your chitch and your choop and find out, because they may have stories about uncles and aunties that you just haven't heard. And what is culture? Is it baskets? Yes. Our people were weavers and still are. Is it Chinook Wawa? Yes. And yet that interrupted culture does come back. My chitch, my grandmother, she spoke Chinook Wawa. She chose not to teach it to most of her children. And at the time, she felt she was protecting them. And we understand the pressures that were on those people. So I feel we need to be kind with this. We need to be open with this. Our powwows, traditional? Well, I know what is traditional. Indian people getting together, catching up, visiting, dancing, singing, gambling, eating a lot of good food, and whether you're doing that in a potlatch, or powwow, or in a plank house, that's good Indian tradition. And so Our canoes may look a little different than the river canoes we probably used in the Willamette. Our seafaring canoes do. But did our people use canoes? There's no doubt about it. Did they dance and sing when they got together? There's no doubt about it. Were matches made over the campfire? Absolutely. So I believe we have to be kind, and we have to embrace people's desire to find their culture and to share it with others. And we need to support that, because that too is part of surviving as Grand Ronde people.
So yeah, being on council at the time when we were moving forward with opening our museum, a lot of these conversations kind of were very alive. And I often heard people say, well, we didn't do that. My family, my mom said. But what I've learned over the years is, and I think Peter kind of nailed it, is that we were 29 different bands of tribes that came to the Grand Ronde reservation. We were not a Grand Ronde tribe. It was a collection of tribes, and all those tribes had different cultural practices. Each and every one of them had something different that they did. Now, through those families, whoever decided to carry on those traditions, that's how we have the traditions we have today, because there's different families from different bands that have cultural practices in their family. And I think the greatest, for me, what I've always tried to do is ultimately respect all those differences from all those different families. And I can't say that Grand Ronde has one identifying cultural practice. You know, I got to be a part of one of the first coming of age ceremonies that we did when I first got elected. And I was very honored to be asked to be a part of that, but it was a practice that we hadn't done in over 100 years. Some people will say we didn't do that, but it is very well known throughout Oregon, Northern California, that that was a practice that women did at that time of their lives. Also, I wanted to focus a little bit on the people that we have that educate us or help us learn what some of those cultural practices are. All come from different varieties too. Some are very well educated, and they've learned a lot of that either from their personal lives and or education, and how do you blend that? In the end, I think we all need to be respectful to everyone's cultural practices and beliefs, and honor and respect that, and recognize that we are 29 bands of tribes and people.
Yeah, I kind of agree with all of that. You know, I really think our cultural and our backgrounds is a great thing to learn. You know, fortunately, all I had was a grandmother that taught me a few Indian remedies, you know, for when you get sick. And some of them I really didn't care for, but I lived through it. But anyway, yeah, I think it would be a real profit to the tribe, you know. But like we said, you know, there's a lot of different bands, a lot of different areas, a lot of different cultures, you know. But I totally agree. I enjoy the cultures. You know, first time I moved over here in 2006 was the first time I went to an Indian powwow. And to me, it was just like stepping back into the 1800s. I said, boy, there are some real Indians, I'm telling you. But I enjoyed it, and I go every year. I still enjoy it. It's just as much excitement as it was the first time. So yeah, I stand behind the cultures.
Andy, can I take one more minute? Yep. Thank you. First thing I want to do is I want to apologize if I may have offended anybody for what I said. And the reason I'm doing that is because there's a difference between tradition and culture. And our family grew up with specific traditions, just like the United States has specific traditions. Because my grandmother or my mother didn't do certain things, doesn't mean that they didn't exist. It just meant that they never participated in it. And that's one of the things that I want to know is how do we establish the difference between what we do culturally and what families do traditionally. And I think that that's extremely important. Just like different religions have different processes, different clans have different processes. I remember when we were originally formed, I think one of the tribes that was listed was Tillamook. Okay, on the original thing. We don't use them anymore. So where do we come from, and how do we put that together? And that's something that we're still going to work on for a long time.
Okay, I'm gonna put my tribal member hat on, and I have a question for you. So, my question is with regard to the Independent Tribal Free Press. As you know, I serve on the board of directors for that. And I just want to know what your position is, how you feel about it, and where you see it moving forward in the future.
And, you know, that's a great process. I've always been for an independent tribal free press. For one very, very important reason. When tribal council controlled the press, if they didn't like something, it wasn't printed. So tribal members never had an opportunity to be able to hear the issue. As an independent press, not only do you get to hear one side of the issue, okay, by commentary, and nobody arbitrarily prints anything. It gets read by several people before it actually goes to print. But you also get point and counterpoint. So the tribal members that are out there that only have the smoke signals, okay, or our website to go to, they get both sides of the issue so they can make a qualified, intelligent decision without interference from tribal council. So I firmly believe that that was one of the best things that ever happened to us.
I'll go ahead too. I'm going to agree also, because I think an independent paper should be in the makings and stay that way. You know, I really believe that freedom of the press, you know, that the words can get out there and talk to the people.
Yes, I've always been supportive of the free press. I think it's a good for the tribe. There's been some concerns that have been addressed. I believe that, you know, as an individual on a tribal council, because we're in the spotlight often, if you're not doing anything wrong and you're proud of the work that you are doing, then you shouldn't be afraid of smoke signals, independent press. So I will say one of the things I really enjoy is their website and their social media accounts, and that they're sharing information about other tribes. I'm really happy to see that, because I've done a lot of that over the years, and now I have somebody else that's doing that. So it takes a little bit of that burden off, but I really think it's good for our people not only to learn or have articles that they're reading about our tribe, but about what other tribes are doing too as a nation. So I'm very supportive of that. I hope it continues. I like the progress that they've made, and look forward to reading more smoke signals.
Thanks for the question, Andy. I'm a strong supporter of the free press. When it was originally discussed on tribal council, after thinking about it long and hard, was all in. And I voted for it. Not everybody did. Tribal members can look that up easily on our tribal website in the archive section, find out who did and didn't vote for the free press, and who supports it and who hasn't. It's also promised in our Constitution. Our Constitution says we will have a free press. And so a lot of times folks like to kind of throw out the Constitution when they don't like the way something is going. Folks, go back and read it, and you'll find the truth of what's in the Constitution there. I've got a copy on me if you'd like to borrow mine. We're promised a free press, so we should be doing this for the people. It's critically important that tribal council does not control what the tribal membership hears about the action of tribal council. And does that mean that from time to time there might be mistakes and we might have to talk about it? Sure, but that occurs with every single news source, and that is part of the larger community dialogue. That's not a problem. I will continue to strongly support the free press. And also, when you look back on some of the difficulties that our tribe has made it through, and you think about what could have been the value of having a free press during microgreen. What if the tribal membership heard people asking all kinds of tough questions, or the kinds of questions that were sometimes asked in meeting? What if all our membership knew that this was not a united conclusion, that this was a good idea? What if during disenrollment, some of the families who were being targeted for disenrollment got to their explanations of their situation were heard by all the membership? You know, I find myself thinking a lot about that and how things might have been different if we got to hear more sides of the situation. Because, you know, there's usually more than two sides to every conversation. And I believe that giving our membership exposure to the wide range of opinions that come before us will only make our conversations better. Thank you.
I held my decision off for actually quite a while. I kind of debated back and forth because I think there's some confusion with a free press and an independent press, and that's where I struggled with, because I was thinking more of the independent side of the press, where the smoke signal wasn't independent of the tribal still financing. They were still in the same building. They had access to. They could literally walk down the stairs and talk to any council member that say the Oregonian, their statesman, wasn't able to do. I've as part of my run, I've been going through and talking to the heads of all the different departments, and I actually talked with Dean Rhodes last week, and it actually helped clear up quite a bit of that. I now have a better understanding of what a free press is compared to what an independent press is. And while he was honest and said, and I don't like speaking for anybody, but he said he had never known of a time where a council member had absolutely said, no, you can't print that. It was strongly suggested that, or it was kind of known that, probably things would go bad if we did. So I think, I'm glad, like I said, it took me a long time to make my decision, sorry, I'm kind of rambling. I am in support of the free press. It just took me, a while to get there because I wanted to have a better understanding of it, but I agree with everybody here that, would we have known more about microgreen? During disenrollment, it was strongly urged that there was nothing written on the paper on the side of the people being disenrolled. It was all, this is a great, process with the roles. So yes, I definitely agree that this is good and needs to continue to go forward.
Great. Well, we have, it is now 12:38. So why don't we conclude with maybe a brief statement, kind of concluding anything else you want to add, and we'll wrap this thing up. So you want to go first?
Sure.
Great.
We've done 3 of these now. We've all put a letter in the paper. I believe that you're getting a pretty good understanding of where all of us are coming from, but there's definitely things that you're not going to get out of just one article or each one of us getting 2 minutes here to answer a question. I don't think there's anybody up here that hasn't given at least 2 or 3 different ways to contact them, whether it's email, phone, Facebook, or anything else. So what I would say is just call the person, email the person, talk to them, get as much information as you can before you make your decision. I think everyone up here would be an excellent council member. I think we all have the ability and skills to do that. It's just, it's going to come down to maybe a little bit of philosophy or anything else. So I would just like to urge everybody to call each and every one of us, talk, and if there was any questions on this, like, did you really mean that? Did you really mean that? So, I can't urge enough to do that. And I can't urge enough again to vote. We're not getting as many as we should be voting. We're averaging right around 30%, give a few, points one side or the other. So, really take the time, talk to us. I'm willing to talk to anybody at any time, and I'm sure all of them are as well. And just to make as much of an informed decision as you can. Sorry. And thank you all for coming, and thank you everybody for putting this on. Thank you, Andy, for moderating. Thank you. I put your words every once in a while. Thank you, Chris, for camera work, and just everybody for your questions and coming today and taking the time out of a nice Saturday.
Well, thanks again, everyone, for the great questions. Thank you all for the honor of being able to serve our tribal council for the last almost 3 years. It's been one of the great honors of my life, and I've done my very best to work hard, to be dedicated to working on the big problems in Grand Ronde and making myself available to the membership. And I would be honored to be able to continue serving in that role. I think our tribal council has made tremendous progress in the last 3 years. We are more open and more accountable than we were just a few years ago. We talked about the free press. We could spend a lot of time talking about the advisory vote process, which is changing the way we govern and the way we budget every single year. Just since we adopted it, we're making previously confidential records available to the membership on a regular basis, and those efforts are continuing. When you're looking for who you support for tribal council, I ask you to think about a couple things. We have a sad history of creating us versus them divisions in our tribe. It happened during disenrollment. It happens over a wide variety of imaginary barriers that are created. Your parents didn't grow up in Grand Ronde. You don't live in Grand Ronde. We're Grand Ronde people. We are the children of our ancestors, and it is our day to come together as tribal people and make the very best future we can. And so for those who stand up and talk about us versus them, for those who only criticize solutions when they're brought to the table and never offer constructive solutions, I ask you to think long and hard about that. We know where that leads, and we are healing from where that leads right now. And I think we as Grand Ronde people need to support one another, we need to embrace one another, and we need to move forward positively. We also need people who can be professionals in this world and work together and work with people who disagree with you. We get to do that every day, and it's important. We need to hear other points of view, and we need to be able to work together as a team, make a decision, and move forward. So I ask that you look long and hard at the candidates and say, is that somebody who's going to be able to serve our tribe in that manner? I sincerely hope you give me the honor of receiving your vote. I would be honored to serve our tribe again. Hayumasi Kanutlax.
Once again, thank you all for being here. Yes, this is our third forum. We've got one more to do, I think, on Wednesday night which is the tribal forum, which is a little different. But looking forward to that. I just wanted to talk about a few of the things that I look forward to if being reelected. And one of the things, everybody's talking about housing. Housing is a crisis across our country, not just in Grand Ronde, but we currently have our low-income apartments that are being built right now. We have the development phase of our elder housing that's going to be going in. Really looking forward to moving forward some home ownership opportunities. Once those are all completed, that'll create a shift. And I do believe it will be able to fulfill some of the needs of the people in our community and or members that want to move back to the community. So really looking forward to moving that home ownership. That's the last thing. It was actually in the housing plan in 2002 and has never been accomplished. So I definitely look forward to that. Some of us been working on some tax issues for Native Americans. We're working on the General Welfare Exclusion Act that will be beneficial for our elder pensions, that they're not taxed. It was about 4 or 5 years ago that this opportunity came forward for tribes. We hadn't at that time got the council to act on it. I know Michael and I have been really pushing that. We went to some good conferences, heard a lot of information about it, and I think we've got people moving forward to look forward to those added benefits for Native American people within our tribe. We did an elder pension increase. We included, we kind of did an adjustment this last time because we've never given the COLA increases that we give to all of our employees. We've now included that in for the elder pension. We did a little larger adjustment last year because we hadn't ever given a COLA. So things like that. And even though we have this property that we bought for $16 million, I just don't want people thinking that, there's a lot of talk about that's going to lower our per cap and that's going to drain our gaming dividend fund. That's not going to happen. We have expended millions of dollars on previous projects in the past that always gets, and we've always been able to maintain the current benefits that we have. I, in the future, want to be able to upgrade and maintain our casino. We really held off on that for several years and let a lot of depreciation things go by the wayside that we should have never have done. That's just not good business practice. We're all up to par on that now, and we'll continue that momentum going. And through all of those things, we have never lost any of our benefits. So just want people to be aware of that. And yes, please look at people's voting records and how they chose to vote on and the decisions that they made in the past. And vote for Denise Harvey. Thank you.
All right, I thank you all too for coming out and giving us this opportunity. This is my second year here, my second try at this, but I really believe that I can make a good worker for the tribe. I'm true and I'm honest. I can make decisions. I've made them in my own businesses and they were profitable. I want to hop in, not only agree with the things that we all agree with, let's move forward on, like I'm gonna move the need 100% on the housing. There's such a great need out there, and I want to press forward. You know, I actually believe that home ownership is something that will benefit a lot of the tribal members, those that live afar off, that want to come work in our areas. That's why we got such a good turnover at the casino, is because there's no housing available. And I said if we can make something more available, a little closer to them, maybe they'll stay a little longer. But I ask for your consideration for your vote. I'll do my best and be as honest as possible. Well, I will be honest, and I will be a worker for the tribe.
Thank you. I do want to thank you all for coming. An opportunity, Randy, if you remember when there was originally taking a look at getting on the board of directors, you and those came and had lunch with me. We talked about processes then. As educated in facilities, particularly with our tribe moving forward in some of the economic development processes that they're currently dealing with, as well as housing and business opportunities, I believe I can bring something to the table that I can work with fellow tribal council members. Mike and I have worked together, Denise and I have worked together. Pete and I spent 19 years working in the process. So I think that the transition of coming in as a new tribal council member is going to be relatively easy. I want to hopefully have you consider my vote for tribal council. I think I can do a good job for them. But you got a great council, you got a great opportunity with a lot of candidates here. So.
All right. With that, thank you very much, and come out on Wednesday to the tribe, right? For the next forum. Thank you.